It was supposed to be the perfect secret, one that no one would ever find out about. Not my husband, not my friends, not anyone. But you know what they say, secrets don't stay hidden for long. And when you live a double life, eventually, someone gets hurt. What happens when your world shatters in a single moment of truth? When the lies you've told yourself begin to unravel before your very eyes? That's what happened to me, and I never saw it coming. I had always been the good wife. At least, that's what I told myself. I loved my husband, or so I thought. But the truth is, there was a hunger inside me that he could never satisfy. Not anymore. The spark had gone, the excitement of being desired, of being wanted, of feeling like I was more than just someone's wife. That's when I met him. I had seen him around town, of course. He was hard to miss. He was the kind of man who entered a room and commanded attention without saying a word. Young, confident, his eyes, dark, intense, full of mischief, had haunted me the first time they met mine. He was different. And it wasn't just his good looks that drew me in. It was the way he looked at me like I wasn't just another woman in his life, but the only one. When we first kissed, I could feel the difference between him and my husband. His touch was electric, like a spark had been lit deep within me. I felt wanted again. Alive. I told myself it was just a one-time thing. A mistake. A fleeting escape from my mundane reality. But it wasn't. The affair started slowly, with stolen moments, secret texts, whispers in dark corners. I felt like I was living two lives, one perfect and spotless and the other wild. And I liked it. I was addicted to it. His touch, his smile, the way he made me feel like I was everything he'd ever wanted. And soon enough, everything else faded. My husband's presence, his love, even the life we built, it no longer mattered, but it was only a matter of time before my worlds collided. It happened on a night that I'll never forget, a night that changed everything. I had been seeing my lover for weeks, sneaking around, feeling that intoxicating mix of guilt and excitement with every stolen moment. But that night, my husband came home early, and when I heard the front door open, my heart stopped. I wasn't ready. I didn't expect him back so soon. Panic flooded my veins. My lover was in the next room, not far away, and I was trapped. I rushed to the door, praying that he'd be quiet, that he'd stay hidden until I could figure something out. My husband's footsteps grew louder, and I could hear him calling my name from down the hall. My heart was racing. Time was slipping away. I had seconds. I could feel the tension building in the air, thick and suffocating. I opened the door as quietly as I could, only to see my lover standing there, frozen, looking at me with those dark eyes that always made my breath hitch. I could see the same fear in his eyes, the same panic I was feeling, but there was something else, something that felt dangerous. Like we were playing a game with no rules, and I wasn't sure who would win. "You need to go," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He hesitated, just long enough for me to think he might refuse. But then, as if he understood, he nodded. And that's when it happened. The door to the bedroom swung open. And there he was, my husband, standing in the doorway, staring at us. His eyes flicked from me to him, and in that instant I could see everything. The hurt, the betrayal, the anger. Everything that had been building inside him, just waiting to spill over. I thought I could lie. I thought I could explain. But the look on his face told me everything. There was no explanation that would make it better. No words that could undo the damage. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded, his voice low but deadly. The tension in the room was unbearable. I felt like I was suffocating. I tried to speak, to explain, but no words came out. My lover, my young lover, the man who had given me so much pleasure and excitement, stood there, just as frozen as I was. My husband's gaze flicked at him once more, then back to me. He didn't ask questions anymore. He didn't need to. His eyes already knew the answers, and in that moment I realized I had lost him. But what happened next? That's what I wasn't prepared for. To say that my husband was angry would be an understatement. He wasn't just angry, he was devastated. And in that devastation, something changed. He wasn't the man I had married anymore. He was someone else. Someone I didn't recognize. His hand shot out, grabbing my arm, and he yanked me towards him. His grip was tight, possessive. "You think you can just throw me away for some boy? Some kid who doesn't even know what he's doing?" His voice cracked with emotion, and I could feel his rage boiling over. I wanted to resist, to pull away, but I didn't, because in a strange way I realized I was scared. Not of him, not exactly, but of the person I had become. You need to choose, right now, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Him or me. You have 10 seconds. 10 seconds. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't breathe. My lover had been silent up until now, watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. But as my husband's words hit the air, he took a step toward me. No, don't do this, he whispered. You don't have to choose. I'll go, but you, think about what you're doing. The words stung. But as much as I cared about him, as much as I had convinced myself that he was my escape, I knew in that moment that I couldn't leave my husband. Not like this. Not in front of him. But as I looked at my husband, broken, angry, and betrayed, the weight of my decision felt like 1,000 pounds on my chest. I walked toward my husband, my heart pounding in my ears. My lover stepped back, his face a mask of hurt and disbelief, and then, just as I was about to reach my husband, I heard a sound, a soft, almost imperceptible noise. It was my lover. He was leaving. But before he could slip out the door, he turned to me one last time. I thought you were different, he said softly, his voice almost broken. But I guess I was wrong. And then he was gone. I stood there frozen, my body numb. My husband was watching me, his face unreadable, and in that moment I realized something. No matter what I had thought about him, no matter how I had convinced myself I needed someone else, it was my husband I had always needed. The question is, did I make the right choice? Did I choose the man I love, or was I just too scared to be alone? The truth is, I don't know yet, and maybe I never will. But I do know one thing: nothing is ever the same after your secrets are revealed. The house felt too quiet after he left. I stood there in the same spot where I'd just seen the love of my life, my lover, walk away. But my heart wasn't in my chest anymore. It felt like it had been ripped out, tossed aside, and now I was standing there, empty. My husband's face was unreadable. His eyes had shifted, cold, distant. But there was something there, something darker than before. I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. He was still angry. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his fists clenched at his sides, but it wasn't just anger anymore. There was pain. A raw, broken pain that I knew I had caused, and for the first time it hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just about sex. This wasn't about the affair anymore. This was about everything we had been, and everything we had lost. You, he began, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. You didn't even think about me, did you? I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. What was there to say? I'm sorry felt so hollow in my mouth. It didn't come close to what I needed to express. It didn't come close to how much I regretted everything, and yet, at the same time, how badly I wanted him. He stepped closer, his eyes burning into me, a mix of love, betrayal, and something else that I couldn't name. Do you even know what you've done to me? His voice cracked, the emotion raw. Do you even care? The truth hit me then. This wasn't about my affair anymore. It wasn't about my lover. It was about the life we built, everything we'd shared, the trust I'd shattered, the years of memories that no longer mattered in the face of what I had done. I felt a strange surge of guilt, mixed with something darker, something almost guilty that I had kept the affair going for as long as I did. But then my mind turned. I had never truly felt alive until him. The way he made me feel, the way he saw me, not as a wife or a mother, but as a woman who mattered. But did that give me the right to destroy everything, to tear apart the one person who loved me unconditionally? Please, I whispered, reaching for his hand, desperate to make some sort of connection, to stop him from leaving. I didn't mean to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt you. He pulled away, his eyes cold now. But you did. You did, and now there's no going back. I stood there, staring at him, the silence between us as thick as fog. He was right, though. There was no going back. Not now. Not after everything. I had hurt him beyond repair. And I was terrified that even if I wanted to make it right, he would never look at me the same way. How could he? How could anyone after this? You need to leave, he said, his voice devoid of emotion now, like all the fight had drained out of him. I need space. I don't know what I need yet, but I can't do this right now. I didn't move, didn't know what to say. His words stung, but at the same time they gave me clarity. We were done. My affair had ruined us. No matter how much I wanted to deny it, no matter how much I wanted to pretend that we could fix things, it was over. And then came the hardest part, the one that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I knew what I had to do. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was what I needed to do. I needed to walk away from him, from my lover, from the life I had built around secrets and lies. I had been living in a fantasy, but it was time to wake up. But just as I was about to turn and leave, my phone buzzed on the table. I froze, my heart racing in my chest. I knew who it was. It had to be him, my lover. I couldn't breathe. I stared at my phone, paralyzed, and then my husband spoke again. This time his voice wasn't angry, it was quiet, resigned. "You're still thinking about him, aren't you?" I turned slowly, unable to hide the guilt on my face. "I don't know what to think anymore." He nodded, his eyes distant. "I thought I knew you. But I don't anymore. You've changed. You're not the woman I married." I didn't know how to respond to that. The truth was, he was right. I had changed. The person I had become was a stranger to me too. And just as I stood there, paralyzed, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from him, from my lover. I couldn't resist. I opened it. "Come to me," the message said. "I need you. We can start over. I can make you feel alive again." The words burned through me like fire. I couldn't breathe. My heart was torn. My husband was right there, the man I had spent years with, the father of my children, the one I had once promised to love and cherish. And yet, I was still thinking about him, about the fire he had started in me. I felt his gaze on me, his disappointment heavy in the air. Don't choose him. Not like this. Not after everything we've been through." But the pull of desire, the pull of everything my lover represented, was almost overwhelming. I closed my eyes, knowing I was standing at a crossroads. I could feel the tension building, every moment stretching out like an eternity. And then I knew. I knew what I had to do. I walked to the door, my body shaking, my heart a mess of guilt and longing. The love of my life was just a step away, and yet, so was my husband. The man who had given me everything, who would forgive me if I let him. I looked back at him, his face a mixture of sadness and anger, and I knew that this was the last time I would see him like this. The man I had betrayed, the man who had trusted me. I opened the door and walked out. As I stepped outside into the night, my phone buzzed one more time. It was him. I picked up. "I'm here," I whispered, and just like that, the chapter was over. I had chosen. But at what cost?